Today, we will be exploring a little bit the concepts related to genetic pathological correlation in melanocytic lesions. So I have a Mentimeter training question for you, which is which of the statements about genetic pathological correlation in melanocytic lesions reflect your views, attitude, and you put if it's you, you put the slider to the right. If it's not you, you put it to the left. And so we'll get some average at some point. So I don't have access to NGS. I don't care about learning genetics. So I think that at some point we will be assessing all melanocytic lesions by NGS or similar techniques. That's the question number 2. There's a statement number 3. I want to see as many melanocytic lesions with no genetics so I can learn how to predict genetics based on morphology. And then I have it's a resignation type of statements. I had enough. This is so much new stuff. I just want to retire early. That's also a statement. It doesn't look that we have that many people in that group. It seems that many people want to see as many melanocytic lesions with no genetics and make predictions to some degree that we will be assessing many lesions with NGS or similar techniques down the road. I'll tell you my take is on this questions. I mean, I do have access to NGS, so I can't really answer the first question. And for me, it's easy. But I don't use it anymore. And that is actually relevant because of the answer to the question number 3, that I've learned a lot in terms of genetic pathological correlation, that in many cases I just no longer feel that I need confirmation anymore. It's just the similar thought process that I don't need to do HPV testing to diagnose a wart, even though I can predict. I don't know exactly which of the possible variants of HPV are there, but it's enough for me to really make those diagnoses. That's why I don't think my answer to question to statement number 3 is kind of maybe reflects the group that I doubt that we will be assessing all melanocytic lesions using genetics, because with time we will learn more about this genetic pathological correlation, and actually will be pretty good in making our diagnosis, even using genetic terminology, even we don't necessarily perform those tests to confirm. But and I do have sympathy for those who want to retire. I certainly do. So, and the reason I brought up that question is that I will just mention to you that I'm a part of what's called International Melanoma Pathology Study Group. This is a group of melanoma experts that were brought together by Dr. Barnhill, who's just here in the center, and we periodically review sets of different cases, and we meet annually to to share our experience. These meetings involve some lectures and, most importantly, review of glass or digital slides, etc. And those meetings resulted in a series of publications on this genetic and pathological correlation. And I thought it would be a good idea to bring this material to broader audience, and that's why 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I think, with Pedram Garami, we did the first course based on that, on the material from this melanoma study groups that were published in expert consensus papers. And now we are doing the same thing for non-spitz tumors. Um, so I want to share with you a few examples of cases that I may select for the course, so you get a better kind of idea where all this is going. And I do have agenda because I want you to consider participating. And while I think on-demand course is going to be fantastic, but there's something special about doing this live. I really would like to have as much live audience as possible because it just feels so great to do it with live participation. So the subject of the course, there will be three, there will be examples of cases or problems from three papers. And the first paper was that one from 2022 on BAMs, which is benign and intermediate grade melanocytic tumors with BRAF mutations and spitzoid morphology. So about that time, we were really struggling in recognizing what are histological features of Spitz tumors, because genetics had a big impact on our perceptions of what is the morphology of spitzoid, what spitzoid means. Because suddenly having this molecular correlation, we had to expand and change our concepts of what spitzoid is and what spitzoid is not. And this was kind of very interesting process. First we really got pretty good in terms of recognizing lesions with diffusions, but then we realized there are also lesions that are spitzoid, but they're not actually spitz tumors genetically, and that paper addresses that issue to some degree. So the first case I want to share with you today is that one, and we'll be just exploring those morphologies. And this was 32-year-old female, I think was on the face lesion, and here's that popular. This is the shave, and your task here on the Mentimeter is going to be to consider whether you favor Spitz tumor or melanocytoma, whatever terminology you prefer to use, common nevus, other entity like BAP1 melanocytoma, etc., or melanoma. Okay. So we have this lesion. It is certainly epithelioid. And we are trying to make our determination whether we think that this lesion is Spitz tumor or not Spitz tumor. And the second consideration here is related to the first one is this a benign lesion or is this a melanoma? Right. And we have kind of areas that look more conventional, and then we have areas or intermingled very pleomorphic cells. So I think that's pretty much it about this lesion. So I'm curious if you guys can go to the Mentimeter and share your thoughts. What do you prefer just based on the H&E? And here are the Mentimeter responses as they're coming. So we are getting, it looks like, Spitz tumors have some votes. Many people think about bipomas probably, and just a few votes for common nevus and one vote for melanoma so far. So I think let's move on to the next step. I'm sharing with you now the genetics of this case. So the BAP1 was retained, so it's not bapoma, at least by immunohistochemistry. And this lesion is BRAF V600E mutated. And there's no indication of any fusions. So what is your diagnosis now? Let's just take a quick peek at that lesion again, just to refresh our memory. So it's not a bapoma, at least by our means of assessment, and this lesion is BRAF V600E mutated. Okay. So what do you think now? What is your diagnosis at this point on the Mentimeter? And I give you 20 seconds. Okay. So actually, folks, went back to Spitz tumor, even though this lesion is BRAF V600E mutated, right? So, in this category, we don't think about that Spitz tumors are allowed to have be BRAF V600E mutated, right? Because that is a different lineage. This is an example of a lesion that belongs to these groups of as we call them BAMs, BRAF, BRAF V600E mutated by spitzoid. And here, what I'm showing you the voting of experts, and we did it only on H&E. We didn't do this exercise, before and after genetics, but just based on histological assessment in this melanoma pathology study group. This is the distribution of the responses just based on H&E, and so you can see that still the majority of experts in this group, favor diagnosis of essentially common nevus, because as far as we know, this is a BRAF mutated lesion that belongs to that category, this lineage of BRAF mutated, common melanocytic proliferations. So during the course, we'll be exploring that interface of these cases, and I'm sure this is going to be very revealing, because unlike in the situation of Spitz tumors, here we are dealing with very common lesions and very common situations. So kind of, it's not my diagnosis per se, but for the purpose of that exercise, it's a BRAF mutated and morphologically spitzoid kind of common nevus, and I'm using the language from that paper. It's not meant to introduce another diagnostic entity, but that's the kind of a gist of it. Okay. So you guys did great. And in a process, when we are going to be, discussing those lesions, we will revisit and refresh our, approach to also diagnosing Spitz tumors. So there's going to be a lot of, there'll be many, fusion-derived Spitz tumors, and participants will be able to enhance to see more cases, more examples of actually, fusion-associated Spitz tumors, and I think that will enhance our ability to be more confident in our diagnosis. So the second paper that we draw some cases from is that one. On this just came out last year, I believe, in June 2024. Impact of NGS sequencing on inter-observer agreement and diagnostic accuracy of desmoplastic melanocytic lesions. Here we had a set of, I think, close to 50 desmoplastic melanocytic proliferations, and we were doing that exercise trying to make our best diagnosis at that time based on histology, and then we learn about the genetics, and we were just doing that again. And here on the Mentimeters, you are going to be considering a little bit different set of diagnostic possibilities. Desmoplastic melanoma is going to be one of them. Desmoplastic nevus is going to be second. desmoplastic spitz nevus or spitz melanocytoma, spitz tumor, whatever, is option 3. Melanoma, it's going to be 4. An atypical slash intermediate grade tumor, non-spitz, so kind of meltump, if you will, and neural soft tissue tumor is an option. That will be the option. So here is the histology of that lesion that we will be, I'm not sure if this will be if these cases will be included in the course, but you know, we have a lot of material, actually a tremendous amount of material. So is this lesion? It's somewhat, you know, desmoplastic, I guess, you know, it fits the bill. Here's the stroma outside of the lesion, and, you know, there's increased collagen. It's pink stroma. The lesion appears to be kind of somewhat symmetrical, I would say wedge-shaped. Let's see what's going on there. It's nested. It's somewhat epithelioid and spindled. So our task, let's see if there's anything in the junctional component. Yeah, there's some junctional nests that look, you know, somewhat nevic. Nothing very concerning in the junctional component. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. So let's go to the Mentimeter and share what you think about this case. Um, and from the options that I provided for you, what would be your favorite diagnosis on this case? And I give you 10 more seconds. So it looks like desmoplastic nevus got a lot of votes, and also desmoplastic spitz nevus got some votes. I think these are the leading diagnoses at this point. So now I'm going to show you the genetics of this case. And we have a 41-year-old right upper arm. So BAP1 was retained, P16 was retained. This lesion was SOX10 and melanoma positive. Had tumor mutational burden of close to 10. That's on the high side, I should say, because, you know, when it's like average in melanomas will be around that high. And the sequencing was done and showed quite a, you know, kind of a lot of different genetic abnormalities. And among them showed NF1 mutations, which were missense. These were not truncated mutations, and had some bunch of other genes, you know, also in that were, you know, mutated. Some of them we can see in melanomas, but none of them is any driver type of changes. The TERT promoters is negative in this case. So this may be too difficult question to ask, but, you know, given this genetics, would you change your assessment of this lesion? You know, you know, this NF1 genetic abnormalities and you know, whether that information will change your opinion. If you don't know genetics enough, which is understandable, don't feel bad about it. You know, you know, part of the, you know, our task with Bedram Garami will be, you know, at least to share our thought process. And actually, no one knows for sure how to interpret all this genetic information. But I was just curious whether that, you know, information, you know, sways you either way. You know, there's a little bit shift we can see towards intermediate grade tumors that occurred. And, you know, a few folks backed off from the desmoplastic spitz tumors, and still the diagnosis of desmoplastic nevus appears to be the favorite. And here I'm sharing with you, what happened in our group assessment, what experts did, and you can see pre-genomics. These are those bars that are purple. And you pretty much, I think our group did exactly like experts. Yeah, still, most of us favored the diagnosis of desmoplastic nevus, and after genomics, we didn't have much swing. And actually, experts, I think, did worse than you guys, because we had we had a shift after genetics to desmoplastic melanoma. Some people were concerned, and I have to tell you that this is, some of this study was done actually, quite a while ago, and people were maybe not familiar. They were experts in morphology, but they were not understanding genetics as well as we do at this point. And also the experts, they did the same thing, that spitz tumors dropped, and there was a little bit increase in intermediate category, understandably, because if we have the information, this genetic information that we don't understand, and the natural response of a human being is to have some anxiety, right? That's what we do. And I think that's in play here as well. And I react the same way. I mean, if I don't know what exactly is the meaning of unknown, I'm worried. So that's fine. And, one could add a typical desmoplastic nevus. One thing, was interesting about that particular case that is that, issue of NF1, because, NF1 gene is one that is associated with desmoplastic melanoma, right? And what's the importance? We're going to be talking about interpreting the results of NF1 genetics in this particular context. I can't go, we have time limitations here, so I will not go into more detail, but there are differences between different types of genetic abnormalities in NF1 gene, because it is a tumor suppressor gene, and there are some there are certain principles that you will learn how to look at this genetic data and how to see the importance of that, how to what is important and what is not. So a typical dysplastic nevus, a typical desmoplastic nevus, I think would be the best diagnosis. Let me see. Actually, I skipped chat. I don't think we have any questions, so let's move on to the third and last case. And here we have a case 51. This is from the most recent paper. Actually, I didn't put the picture here. I just realized, forgot. This is a paper from Modern Pathology, January. Actually, it's not even in paper yet. It is only available online in Modern Pathology, online. I think it's that one is for open access, where we interrogated lesions related to, at least histologically, to deep penetrating tumors. And this is an example from that case. And here, the diagnostic options for us are conventional nevus, conventional melanoma, DPN, borderline, DPM, and malignant DPN. So, or, melanoma arising in DPN, or Wnt rearranged melanoma. Here's that lesion. Okay. So we can see it's a bigger lesion. We're dealing here with excision. We have the lesion that even at low magnification has architecture reminiscent of deep penetrating tumors in general, extends along adnexal structures into deep reticular dermis. Maybe it's somewhat asymmetrical. Let's just take a look at the other piece. There's a little bit of asymmetry. And there's inflammatory scale. Looks like there is an ulceration here as well in this lesion. Um, Let me just show you something, a context. It looks like we are in a context of significant sun exposure, even though the patient is only 48 years old. But, people in Australia, you see this all the time, for sure, in young people. And here's what we have. We have a nested epithelial proliferation. Let me see what else do we have. Not much in the epidermis other than that ulceration. I'll look at the periphery to see if there's any kind of a pre-existing common nevus, maybe not. Here we have more like type A melanocytes. They have quite prominent nucleoli though. And let's see what's happening at the deeper portion of that biopsy. There is, I would say, cytological atypia in this lesion because, typically in deep penetrating nevi, we are expecting this hyperchromasia rather than vesicular nuclei. So that's somewhat, I would say, abnormal. But I don't. We have not seen mitotic activity. I'm not good at finding mitosis, so maybe you guys have seen mitosis. But I think that's enough. So now go to the Mentimeter and tell us what you think. Conventional nevus, conventional melanoma, DPN, meltump, DPN, kind of borderline lesion, or malignant DPN. I'll give you 20 seconds. That seems like a good time. And then I'll tell you genetics, and we'll do the same thing again. Okay. So it looks like many folks favor the diagnosis of meltump on the H&E, and but still, a few folks were concerned about conventional melanoma and malignant DPN. So let's take another look, and I'll tell you what the genetics is. So this case, had some mitotic activity. Tumor mutational burden was, 13, which is high. It's high, but again, we are in a context of severely sun-damaged skin. So, a lot of cells in these patients are already preloaded with UV. So, we always have to take that into context as well. And this lesion was BRAF V600E mutated, had MAP kinase 1 duplication, had beta-catenin gene mutation, and had TERT promoter mutation, and a bunch of other genes. Some of them we see in melanomas progression, but none of them is on its own, very impactful. So what do you think now? What is your diagnosis now, knowing this genetics, that we do have, lineage defining genetic features of, conventional melanoma, conventional, lineage, and we have, pathogenic mutations in beta-catenin, which implies Wnt, and we have TERT promoter mutation at the same time. Yeah. Okay, so what do you think? Let's see where we are. So clearly we have a shift in our opinions to malignant DPM. Some folks are still, saying that, in a premolecular era, I've diagnosed many of those lesions as, borderline or meltums or atypical DPNs, have no indication that that these were wrong diagnosis. So I think that's quite reasonable. So I'll show you the experts. You guys were pretty much following the experts. So in an expert study, pre-genomics, the majority of folks favored Meltump, DPN like Meltump. And after genetics, we were able to be more confident to diagnose this lesion as malignant melanoma, which at the end of the day was our consensus. But I'm quite sympathetic to the folks who, even in the face of TER promoter mutations, came to conclusion that, yeah, we still don't know what that means. TER promoter mutation is an early, that has a strong correlation with melanoma, but should we entirely abandon our ideas that we developed looking at the lesions histologically and that served us and our patients very well? I mean, this still, those issues kind of remain to be kind of determined. But at this point, we are very concerned about finding TER promoter mutations. So I think, the consensus diagnosis in this case ended up being Wind inactivated melanoma, malignant deep penetrating tumor. I'm going to check what was my diagnosis in this case. But I'm very sympathetic. Let's put it that way. I'm very sympathetic to still calling this lesion as Meltum, and because this is very actually useful diagnosis. You cannot be proven wrong, right? When you diagnose something as Meltum, and there's still a lot to be learned. So I think that's pretty much it of this little sneak preview into the upcoming course. I hope that I caught your interest with those cases, and you get a better idea what what we're trying to achieve with Pedram Gerami, and yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. But it's going to be also it's going to be very, I think, deep and very practical, because just imagine that you're going to see 75 cases plus, because I have so many cases that are great, and I'm going to put them as bonus cases for those who are absolute workaholics and who like to binge watching Dermpath on the internet. Gosh, this is going to be heaven for everybody that fits that description. Okay. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if there are any questions or comments on chat. Yeah, so thank you very much for spending this time with me, and I hope to see you at the course either live or I will not see you if you decide to take it on demand. But my spirit is going to be there, and as you'll see, it's going to be very interactive, even if you take it in an on-demand format.